Hey watercolor wizards, Hajra here. Today we'll be working on some ink and wash lighthouses done with some pointillism and some washy watercolor over the top. And it's a simple project, but very satisfying. Thanks for parking your brushes here and let the epic ink and wash adventures begin. Free Skillshare video links, art blogs, Q&A, sketches, deconstructed paintings, video notes, and art gifts are all at a single convenient and affordable tier for patrons on Patreon. So I'm lagging one project behind in my video output, so these lighthouses and these globes were actually done last week and have already left my house because they were included in patron gift packages for the 2018 holiday season as some of the original art gifts. Full gift packages for $7 patrons included a handmade card and art print of one of my paintings, an original watercolor painting which were all one of a kind, a waterproof color wheel image for patrons to swatch on, 2 blank pieces of Arch's watercolor paper, and 2 blank artist trading cards for patrons to work their own art magic on. Preparing and sending off those packages made me a little bit behind on my video stuff, but it was worth it because now it's out of the way and I'm not going to be doing that during this super dense holiday season in late November or early December. At least 25 of you are going to be getting a gift package from me in the mail, so keep an eye out. So I decided to do these ink and wash projects with a stippling or pointillism outline instead of a solid line for a visual and textural change. You might recall I did a Russian castle study in watercolor pencil some time back, and it was supposed to be in a snow globe, and that was in the sketch for my castle sketch download on Patreon, but my final version somehow lost the globe and gained a flying ship and clouds instead, so I didn't get to do any kind of globe. So I still had snow globes on my mind as some kind of fun and quick project. When I was visiting my mom for her recent surgery for 3 weeks, I saw that she had a lot of snow globes and she also had lighthouses, so it made me put that together that I should do a lighthouse and a snow globe. And that's how I ended up with this art video. And I've posted my lighthouse and globe sketch for patrons to use as a fun and quick project for cards or just to have around your house. And my final ink and wash pieces ended up having that stippling or pointillism, and I really liked it because the dots ended up making the art look simultaneously more ethereal and also more texturized. And I also ended up doing 2 smaller mirror image versions of the lighthouse instead of just one larger one. And this is because I liked the idea of having a warmer daytime version and also a cooler, darker nighttime version of the same lighthouse snow globe. And this was a fun, fast ink and wash project and easy for me to do even with one hand recuperating from another hypermobility injury, so it really is the kind of thing that you can just do in an hour or so. I use leftover paints and inks from various palettes that I'm going to discuss later, and that's something I do every now and again because it makes use of leftover paint that's on my palettes instead of just wiping or washing them away. And to me that feels like it's good for the environment, and also it makes me feel better about my own investment because a lot of the paints that I buy are artist grade, so I don't want to just wash them away if I can make use of them in some other smaller project. So for the inking, I used a waterproof Zig Writer marker, which is, as you know, my go-to marker of the few markers that I have around, and I used the fine side, the 0.5mm tip to do the stippling. And because it's a harder marker tip, it's actually a lot easier to stipple with it than it is to stipple with a brush, so that's definitely a good idea if you want to do a lot of dots, is probably to switch from a spotter to a marker. Sometimes the strokes came out more as little dashes, so it was like also doing some mini contour lines. And I just did a post on Patreon actually quickly overviewing basic inking techniques and tools and styles, so check that out if you're a patron. One of the really nice and convenient things about doing the circular curve and the dots and dashes was that it can be harder to do a solid curving line for a globe like this. And I would normally resort to pulling out a compass to keep it more accurate. But if you don't have a compass where the ink can be loaded and your circle stencils don't get to a size where you're doing something like this, then you'll still have the problem of a potentially awkward ink circle if you do it by hand. There's a few ways that you can compensate for that. So either you practice so you get better at inking over a penciled in circle, and you will end up getting more elegant lines over time, or you deliberately make it look more organic and uneven and handmade, which is its own appealing type of look. And I have done that, especially for pieces where it's evident that I'm not trying to make it into a perfect realistic circle. Or, as in this case, you can break up the line into dots and dashes and skipped spaces, and that will actually keep the gracefulness of the curve that you've drawn for the globe without you feeling like it'll go down as an awkward solid line. A broken line to keep an ink over drawing elegant and faithful to the more graceful underlying pencil lines, especially in tricky areas like a big curve, really is a good idea. I was done with the pointillism pretty quick. And the nice thing about that is then you get to paint faster. The leftover paints I used were Sennelier paints from my Lily projects earlier this year, and I had some oranges, yellows, and greens, and they made for a nice daytime autumn color scheme. And it's not my favorite color scheme because orange is not my favorite color, and there's a lot of warmth in this color scheme, so I don't really like either too much warmth and too much orange. But it's definitely a visually striking color scheme and a perfectly nice limited color scheme if you like these colors. So there was a lot of triangles that you can see in the trim or border under the globe. I did these wet on dry to get gradients by putting paint down in one corner and then blending out that paint with a damp clean brush to fill in the rest of the triangle. The dark to light gradients that were created just made it more visually interesting than flat fills. So that's always an idea if you've got checks or rectangles or a lot of circles or a lot of triangles, is try to turn all those little sections into gradients and not just all colored exactly the same, unless you are going for a very flat fill graphic novel or comic book type look. Apart from the little sky area in both of the globes where I did that wet on wet, most of the rest of the globes are wet on dry, and there's just a lot of little sections that you're coloring in, so it doesn't really need a lot of water. And I did have a bit of pale violet in the first globe, in addition to the yellow, orange, and green, to sort of indicate the airy sky, because I didn't really feel like putting any of those other three colors up there. Then went and later put some of that violet into the base or stand area of that globe, because I just wanted to have some color bookending and not have that color only appear once, otherwise it would look kind of weird. And I also tried to make that base area of the globe have a bit of wet and wet mottled texture, because again, that provides some further interest, and you can choose to do it completely flat, or you can put in a different pattern, or you can put in some sparkly highlights, anything that'll make it more fun and more interesting for the viewer and also for you as you're painting it. And this is definitely one of the easier projects that I've drawn and painted. You know, it's definitely not a portrait of a person or some graceful animal or a botanical study of some sort, so it's easier than all those types of pieces that I do. So it's a bit off kilter from those styles and subjects and a bit more experimental. That's just a nice thing to do to give your brain some time away from harder projects and also just to explore new things. I think I'd get horrible burnout all the time if I couldn't intersperse harder projects with easier, playful, and experimental ones. And I think that goes for everybody, so I don't think people should feel pressured to just do the same thing all the time unless you truly are the kind of person that never gets bored with the same thing. The simpler projects that I do get less views on YouTube and also less likes on Instagram, but I just am not a slave to social media. I can't let that happen to me because I can see that I'm making some choices that will be more unpopular when it comes to views and likes and stuff, but at least my choices are authentic to me and my growth and pleasure as an artist. And I really encourage more folks to remember that. Social media is a vehicle to share, and it shouldn't be something that's a vehicle to limit and influence you so that you end up just catering to it. And that includes artists not being as diverse or trying to just fulfill certain expectations and therefore not being more fun and experimental with their work or videos for fear of suffering from less views or likes. And it also includes people feeling pressure to post product reviews of things that they don't need, but they just get in reviews so they can get more reviews and traffic or more brand sponsorships. And of course there's channels that get sponsored by brands they love and have and use all the time. And that's completely different. Now I'm talking about project reviews and just shilling for certain products and brands just so you can get more views and sponsorship. And that really shouldn't be what's guiding what you choose to work with or what you create. And there's artists who express that they really feel like they're under a lot of pressure to keep producing a particular thing that's expected from them, whether it's an art style or a subject or at a particular pace. But listen, if you're someone who paints nothing but realistic portraits all the time, but really you'd like to do some decorative, stylized birds and flowers or something, then go for it. Don't let the fear of how somebody might react stop you from doing something that you truly want to do. It's going to make you happy in the long run. And if you can't do like 30 Inktober pieces because that's too many, then don't. Just do what you want. You don't even want to do anything at all for a month and just have some time away and get a break, then do that. My main point is just be true to your artistic growth and needs. If you feel like doing something simpler than you normally do, then go for it. And if it gets less views, then that's a shame. And what I tell myself is at least I can say, like Frank Sinatra, I faced it and I stood tall and I did it my way. For the second globe, I did a nighttime color scheme, and I used leftover Sodalite Genuine from my Zorn Widow study, and also leftover Inktense colors in my micro mini palette from various projects. I tried to keep it to just 3 or so colors to keep that limited color ambiance and to get a nice midnight mood for the second globe. It is a fun goal to use paints that are out and try to figure out how you can use them and what would make them come together into a nice piece, because I actually get a thrill out of using something so it doesn't go to waste, and finding some fun way to work it into an existing project is just like, double dipping. Of course, I ended up liking the nighttime globe better just because I like darker and cooler colors more, and that's just a personal choice on my part, so you might like the warmer globe better. And what I was using was Strathmore mixed media paper out of one of my dismantled journals, and it was really amenable to ink and wash. And that's something I found out about any of these less robust papers, and I've mentioned that before, which is that just put them aside for ink or ink and wash, and that's a great idea for any of my non-Arches or non-Fabriano watercolor papers. And for the second globe, I tried to maintain some value contrast in the gradients, in the triangles, in the border and the trim of this globe as well. And it just really helps to make a simple project just a tad more complex and interesting while you work on it, and also for a viewer who looks at it later. And after I was done with my day and night version, I thought to myself that I think I want to do at least one more version of this Lighthouse in the globe, maybe a more saturated gouache version with some sparkly accents, because I feel like it would try to do more justice to sort of the holiday snow globe, I think. And like I said, I have this online as a sketch download for patrons. Can do different seasons, different color schemes, and in modified scenes inside the globe. Maybe you want to put some more accessories in the scene there and change stuff about, or you can add sparkle and glittery or metallic paint accents. So the sky really is a limit here. I mean, you can think of whatever you want to do to change it up and make it your own. And that includes not even doing pointillism if you don't want. Maybe you want to do a solid ink line, or maybe you want to have no ink line and you just want to do watercolor over it. And if anyone did end up painting for seasonal variations of it, so you had a spring, summer, autumn, and winter, it would be a really instructive exercise about different moods and color schemes. So that's actually a really nice idea. Well, Wizards, hope you enjoyed this simple and satisfying ink and wash lighthouses and globes project. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check out my website link, Skillshare, and Patreon page to support my art and art channel below. Thanks for parking your brushes here, and wishing you all magical, inky adventures.